New World Fantasy Football. We are back. I don't know what episode it is, but we do have a very special guest. He is part of our Dynasty League. Alex, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, Alex Aragon. Been part of this couple leagues with this crew for a few years now. We were just talking about another league. I think I got into my first fantasy football league probably about almost 20 years ago is what we were counting out, and still have an active league going. So super excited, fan of the pod, ready to talk some shit and see if we get some how many Tommy DeVito drops we can get in one show.
Hey, and they believe you are a Bucs fan, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct, Alex?
Pre-Tom Brady era, shout out Brad Johnson, shout out Jeff Garcia, shout out Josh Freeman, shout out Josh Johnson, shout out the realist, the dark days to the light days, we out yet.
I don't know how you feel about it, but I always shout out John Gruden as well. So,
I mean, Chucky is Chucky, baby. Chucky
Love
is Chucky.
Guy.
One thing, I don't know if you guys got to see all of his stuff with Barstool this past week, but that investment is already paying off on all fronts of more Gruden all the time.
Dude, Portnoy's a genius, man. People have treated Gruden like toxic waste. Ever since that whole the whole email thing came out.
It's a couple racist emails between owners. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, what are you gonna do? I mean, download everybody's server, right?
I'm pretty sure Robert Kraft has a ton of those. But whatever. It is what it is at this point. I'm happy to see his face back in mainstream media because dude's hilarious. And I don't know if you knew this, Alex, but we used to do Monday Night Football with me, of course, Paul. I think Andrew Lee and Richie Masillo as well.
I know all those dudes.
We started the Book of Gruden, where we would write down quotes during Monday Night Football about because he's not gay. He's not gay. He's just gay for football.
Oh, mega gay for football,
and it's great. And so am I. So hey, we're all gay together for football.
I thought you brought me on here just to recap people's stats this week. Patrick Mahomes, 300 yards, overtime win. Ha!
If you want to be the boomer of the show, by all means.
What's the what is that thing he said? I'm trying to think. A nicey. Is it nice?
Nice. And when I say boomer, I mean I'm talking about Chris Berman.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah.
But
that shit is too funny.
So, guys, you guys are both Bucs fans. I'm a Giants fan. Give me a quick prediction of this game because they're playing this week on Sunday. They're playing.
Yeah. Paul, I'll let you go first.
I mean, they better win or the season's over. I mean, that's the entire conversation. It's no disrespect to the Giants, but you've had multiple games where you've taken good teams, some might say better teams, all the way to the end and just don't get it done. You've had an entire bye week to prepare. This is it. This is the entire tenor of the way your season is going to go. You got to take care of business. Obviously, if they get Tommy Cutlets, then Todd Bowles is going to be the next cutlet on the pan. It's
Ooh,
that almost
I know that was off the cuff, but that was good. Yeah,
that was good. What do you think, Alex?
All right. Obviously, there is some bias here as a Bucs fan. I started the season out menza on the Richter scale of hopefulness. But we come out week one and beat the Commanders. At the time, you don't know really what that looks like. You got a rookie quarterback. That's a lot more quality of a win looking back than anybody might think, especially with the rip Jaden Daniels has been on. I remind you, week two, a 20-16 rematch of the playoffs last year. Is it the only loss the Lions have at this point? I don't know if that is the only loss. I think maybe the Lions picked up another loss. But beating the Lions in Detroit is some wild stuff. A loss to the Broncos, a little bit random, but that's starting to look a little bit better. Beating the Eagles, losing a game we should have won against the Falcons in Atlanta on a very last-minute crazy Drake London touchdown, a win against the Saints, and then our entire legs fell off, literally and figuratively. Mike Evans' injury, Chris Godwin going down for the season. I mean, I don't even know some of the guys we're marching out there. And Baker Mayfield just keeps showing up with balls of steel. We got our asses whipped by the Ravens. We took another L to the Falcons. We just lost to the Chiefs and Niners. I mean, that is a hell of a Ravens, Chiefs, Niners, Falcons, 4 weeks in a row. That is a hell of a gauntlet to be hitting. We're 4-6. Like Paul said, we got to get back on track. I'm looking ahead at the schedule here. Giants, Panthers, Raiders, Chargers, Cowboys are what the next few weeks has in store. I'm with you, Paul. A lot of potential here to get back on track.
Yeah, I think the Giants are the perfect matchup to do that. As much as Giants fans want to believe and love DeVito, there's a reason why he's a third string undrafted guy. And what gets lost in the madness that was the Cutlet Mania last year was the Giants were on their best streak defensively they'd been on in like 5 years, where they were just turning the ball over like crazy. They were getting turnovers like crazy. So the defense won those games more so. I will say the Packers game, he played really well. It was like a Sunday night or Monday night game. It was a primetime game. He played really well. I don't see Tommy DeVito really coming out and going gangbusters again. And real quick note, I hate to be this guy, Alex, but I need to correct you. That last minute touchdown against the Bucs, I think it was to Daryl Hodge or something like that. It wasn't. I wish it was Drake London because I have him in fantasy and right
off the bench with fresh legs against
somebody got hurt and he came in and was like, "All right, fine, I got this shit." But
I think London pushed it to OT. Is
yes,
what it was. I think London pushed it to OT, and then I couldn't remember the player's name. I think it was also some cleat gate there for. But hey, I'm not a salty Bucks fan or anything like that.
Division games are wild.
Let me ask you this, Marchese, Giants fan. Obviously, you're sitting where you're sitting. There's a lot of rumblings this week about Drew Lock has been the number 2 all year long. We go to a bye week. Drew Lock basically gets told, go to hell. You're the backup to our third stringer now who we're moving up. Any thoughts there on a strategy here? Are they just trying to mail it in fully? And is Daboll out at the end of the season? That's really what I want to know.
All right, so I'm going to answer your questions in chronological order. The reason why it's DeVito over Lock is because Lock was insurance for Jones in a season with hope. Now that the season is completely cooked, it's not even cooked. It's burnt. It's not a nice cooked meal. It's freaking burnt to shit. They're going with DeVito for 2 reasons. One, excitement, money, fans in the seats, Italiano, obviously that region of the United States, there's a lot of proud Italian Americans. So it's that, and it's also he's the only quarterback they're going to have under contract next year. So they might as well develop the guy that's going to be under contract and see if he can at least be the backup next year. That way they don't have to go out and either re-sign Drew Lock or find another backup or something like that. They can just, I think what the Giants are hoping to do is draft their quarterback for the future and DeVito prove he's good enough to at least be the backup. The second part of that question is Daboll going to be out? I do not think so. The dude was brought in to be a quarterback whisperer, and he was given a beautiful piece of marble with Josh Allen, and now this like shit red mud from like the bottom of hell and Daniel Jones to work with, and he's like, I can't fucking work with this shit. So I don't think he's out. I don't think it would be fair. I know the record sucked for the last 2 seasons. Guy won Coach of the Year a few years ago. So with like not only Daniel Jones, I mean like Richie James. Where the hell is Richie James right now? Where the hell is Isaiah Hodgins? I mean, I know he's on the roster, but he's buried on the roster for the Giants. Those were like the primary receivers that year in 2022. So we can't continue to live in the past as Giants fans. But I don't think it would be right to go ahead and boot Daboll out. And our owner has said as much. Now we'll see if that changes if they end up going like 2-15. But I don't want to see him go just yet. I want him to have a chance to get his quarterback in the building. And see.
Yeah, I find it interesting when coaches get fired on tanking seasons. It's like, I thought this is what you wanted, right? Like to me, a coach gets fired, or it should get fired when you actually have expectations going into the season and you fuck it away. Like that's to me when a coach gets fired. If everybody looking at your team preseason at your roster says this team's going to be garbage, and then they look like garbage, yeah, whatever. I mean, at a certain point, you have to try to turn it around as a coach. But like, look at like a Dave Canales over in Carolina, right?
Carolina, yeah.
Did he get fired? The team went 2-whatever last year, and they're probably going to do the exact same thing this year. But it's the same roster, it's the same cast of characters. I don't know. Like, I don't know if a guy just needs to get fired only because he can't, get blood out of the stone, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I can feel you on that. I'll quickly make a prediction though for the Bucks game, the Bucks Giants game. I think the Giants are going to struggle to score. I think we're going to score one touchdown. Tyrone Tracy is going to be able to break one. He seems to be able to do that every game.
I'm sure that's what you want to happen.
I would love for that to happen fantasy wise as well, but it seems to be the only way they could score lately. So, yeah, I'll give them like 13. So I'll say like 26-13 Bucks. Mike Evans should be back as well, which is huge. And he always cooks the Giants. We don't have any good cornerback to speak of to like get in his way. So he should score a touchdown too, assuming he's fully back.
I like the score you're putting out there. I don't feel confident enough to give a score, but if you're looking from a Vegas perspective, in the Meadowlands this weekend, Bucks on the road are a 6-point favorite. I'm with you, man. Let me lay the 6 points. I think Bucks win by a touchdown or more.
Yeah, fully agree.
Same here. I actually think the Bucks touch 30 points in this game because I think the offense is always going to show up. Bull's defense, although his over-reliance on the blitz kind of pisses me off at times, that does work against poor quarterbacks or very young quarterbacks that aren't used to it. So I think they will cause some turnovers. I think they will cause some problems that will give them some short fields. But as Alex can absolutely tell you, this defense is also susceptible to some deep shots. It's also susceptible to some like unbelievable broken coverages in the middle of the field. So I think the Giants actually they've got 2.5 in them. They've got a couple tuds on the Bucks, but
you think so? Okay.
I'm thinking like a 30 to 20 ish in that range.
Yeah. And I will say something else that got lost in the shuffle of DeVito madness. He got sacked a ton last year, and Andrew Thomas is not going to be back this year to help him out. So he wasn't there last year when the time he came in. But
yeah,
let's talk about fantasy. I'm going to quiz you guys here. Are either of you guys have Cortland Sutton in any league?
I don't have him in any league, but I will tell you that I'm beginning to wish I did.
Negative. Fair. Not even on my radar, to be 100% honest with you.
If you could say, take a guess at, he's wide receiver what on the season? Half PPR.
I almost cheated. I'm not going to. I will guess. At this point, he's been on a hot streak, and that's sometimes enough. Wide receiver 17.
What do you think, Alex?
Obviously, from the frame of your question, it would be lower than that. But if I was asked this fresh, I would have said higher. I would have said over 20.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's what most people kind of think is he'd probably be in like the 20 to 25 range. He's actually wide receiver 14. He's been a high end 2, which is like crazy because he's not getting the attention that I think he deserves as a really valuable asset in fantasy. He's not really putting anybody over the top, but like just week in and week out, he's been solid. So I always think that's interesting to look at. Yeah, man. Bo Nix is a guy that I've completely 180'd on. Like, I thought he was going to be trash, and I have come out here. I'm actually happy this happened. It gives me a chance to not like sound so narcissistic. I was wrong. I was completely wrong on Bo Nix. Some people might make the argument, well, you can't really crown a guy yet. You can't really shit on a guy yet this early in their career. But you know what? He's playing with so much poise. It's not like he's just like getting lucky, flinging the ball down the field, throwing up Hail Marys or whatever, or he's just running for his life and that's all he's doing. Like, he's operating an offense and it's smooth and it looks good. Like, I was just dead wrong on it. I thought it was going to suck.
There's a Cortland Sutton every year in fantasy, a guy that is just, Alex said the perfect word. He was never on my board. He was never on my radar, never even considered it. Because what did he score? 10 touchdowns last year and didn't crack 1,000 yards. Like,
I don't think he cracked like 800 yards.
Right.
I think he was at like 6
something. An uninspiring sounding offense. He's not like a sexy player. Doesn't really like super pop off the screen. But yeah, there's that guy every year. And then you look at some of the names that are under him in fantasy ranks. Malik Neighbors, Ladd McConkey, Marvin Harrison, DK Metcalf, Nico, which is not fair. Nico Collins missed a bunch of time or what have you.
And DK missed a few games as well.
AJ freaking Brown.
He's missed some time as well.
All the way down. Yeah, but it's just, this is what happens. Like you have to stay water with fantasy football because you were not a Bo Lever, and then you became like a Bo Knows #1 fan. I definitely, I kind of have problems with that. Like, I see a couple good games from a guy, and if my original take was not being with them, I find it kind of easy to excuse it away. And once that second or third week happens and I'm like, oh shit, maybe I was wrong, by that point it's too late. Somebody else bought in. So, that kind of comes back to bite me a little bit at times.
Alex, you have anybody that you are pleasantly surprised with this season?
I mean, the first one that jumps off mine, just because, I've got him in a league and this is not anybody that's going to be a surprise. This is a homer pick. The Ja'Marr Chase domination over the last few weeks has just been absolutely outrageous. I know that's not the level of where you're looking at, but as a proud Chase owner, I'm definitely seeing my advertised return come back from being a top pick for me this season. Looking over the list and some numbers as far as some surprise names that are out there, one that got some love preseason and has really stepped into their role, it's right around that Cortland Sutton ranking that you had mentioned, is Khalil Shakir, man. Khalil Shakir in that Buffalo offense at this point has been a real sleeper for some folks as they were looking for what's going to happen with Stephon Diggs being out. Obviously, we know, Amari Cooper being added in late into the season, but Khalil Shakir busting into that top 20, a name that most people, unless maybe you played Madden, really probably didn't know of. But that little guy is just absolutely running amok through that Buffalo Bills offense there for them out of that slot position.
I've drafted him in a few places. He ended up making his way off my team in a lot of areas, but I was on that bandwagon. Not that I thought it was going to be amazing, but just that he could be surprisingly decent, which I think he's been. Another name, just quickly, who I thought you were going to say was Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney has been way better than anybody would have thought. And that Atlanta offense has been, not this past week, but before that, they've been cooking.
I'll throw you one that's right in that same ballpark as well. And this is a name that maybe I personally just sleep on. Obviously, we're East Coast guys. Some of those West Coast guys kind of just fall through. But Jackson Smith and Jigba, I've watched a couple of games this year where DK who? Like, I literally watched this man steal the show of, like, I think he had a 200-yard game a couple weeks back where there's just no answer for the man. Like, I know for me, that is not if you would ask me, hey, Jackson Smith and Jigba going to be a top 10 fantasy wide receiver this year, I would have barely been able to place you what team he was on, let alone tell you he's going to be in the top 10 halfway through the year.
The definition of post-hype sleeper. Everybody loved this kid coming out when he got drafted. And yeah, like, okay, he got drafted to a team. Okay, there's Tyler Lockett's there, DK Metcalf's there. People were a little bummed out about that, but he was still, correct me if I'm wrong, drafted pretty decently high, even considering all of that when he first came into the league last season.
Well, he was drafted in that same – it was that quartet – to interrupt, Paul. It was that quartet of Zay Flowers, Quentin Johnston,
I
Jackson Smith and Jigba. Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, like he was drafted like for a rookie, like I think probably a pretty normal range or whatever, but he still went. But the thing is, like the Shane Waldron offense last season and his overall like lack of opportunity bummed everybody out and got everybody off the scent. And then now everybody that bought back in this season looks like a fucking genius, which kind of makes me feel like let's not lose sight of some of these other rookies that may or may not be like flying off the page from a stat standpoint, or, you know, like, hey, they had some draft capital. They haven't been great. The Xavier Worthies of the world, the Keon Coleman's of the world, even though Keon's flashed, right? He's been good. But like it doesn't always Justin Jefferson. It does not always happen that way.
Yeah, or Odell Beckham. Like it can't always be that way. And that's the thing too. I think it's easy to give up on these guys quickly because we have seen that now over the past like 5 years where their rookie wide receivers come in and just blow it up right away. And it's like, well, if this guy's not doing that, then he's obviously not good and fuck him. I don't think that's fair. I look like the biggest idiot in the world because I dropped JSN one week before he blew up. Because I'm like, well, there's my philosophy in fantasy. If I don't have a player on my roster, if a player on my roster is not actually going to make it into my starting lineup because they're just kind of a bleh 8 to like 7 to 9 points and you're not really making a difference for me, I don't really care. I'll let somebody else have you because I'm like, let them be a roster clog or put them in their lineup where they're not really an impact player. And then of course he decides to blow up that next week. And I'm like, well, I suck at fantasy. So what am I doing here?
And that's where you caught my ass sleeping. I would have snapped him up in a second, but I had no idea. I saw that Jeremy had picked him up, and I was like, "What the hell?" But yeah, I mean, check the activity, folks. That's good. That's a good call out, Alex. I like that.
That is a good one.
Are we ready for some bad surprises yet? Some.
Oh my god, bro!
There's a lot. There's a lot.
The fuck do I have DJ Moore on my fucking team for any? Like, I was waiting for that transition, and I'm looking through my lineups, and I'm like,
this is what the people want. I have like one more really good one, but that's not what people want. So fine, it's not really good, but somebody who's quietly been good, surprisingly, is Najee Harris. He's just a solid RB2. Should get you like low double digits every week. If you can get that out of your RB2, you're happy. That's really all I had to say about that. So let's shit on some guys.
Amazing what happens when Duck Hodges isn't your fucking quarterback. It's pretty fucking unbelievable.
No,
right?
The offense rising has really lifted him as well. But let's also remember that the Buccaneers have 2 RB2s that play on the same team. Like, the threshold of what makes an RB2 is really low. It's basically 10 points. If you
but it's the consistency with Najee. It's the consistency with Najee that's been good. Is like you can put him in your lineup every week as an RB2 and be like, all right, he's going to get me 12, and that's not bad for running backs when they're so scarce. But who else do you want to shit on? I'm ready for that. That's more fun.
These streets.
So DJ Moore, what do you think going forward for DJ Moore? Like especially Dynasty. You have him in our Dynasty league, right, Alex?
I do. Unfortunately, I do. Yes.
He's had like one good game on the whole season.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of potential there, but whatever the fuck that means, with what we've got, I mean, I think we all saw the story this past week of him essentially walking off the field during a live play or something like that within the last week or two. Like,
I actually
dude's
died
just checked
laughing.
out.
I died
Yeah,
laughing at
dude's
that.
checked out. Like, could not give a fuck. Clearly, like, what I think maybe we were talking about it in the pre-show, but the absolute fucking mess that Eberfluck is essentially going on there in Chicago. And, you got veteran talent. I mean, you got Keenan Allen, you got DJ Moore, you got these people that should be doing well. It just seems like everybody's kind of marching to the tune of their own drummer in Chicago. So I don't know. I am not hopeful on it. I'm a seller on DJ Moore at this point. You could offer me a, half working washing machine and I would consider it at this point. So that's where I'm at on DJ Moore.
Off season, I might
I'll
talk
do
to
that.
him. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good to know. You put it out there.
I'll offer you some hopium if you would like. And it's not going to matter for me at all because the only place that I have him is in a redraft league. And I tried to sell him for a fucking bag of chips and it didn't work. But last week, even though it was another tragic defeat for the Bears, Shane Waldron just not being there at all made a difference for the offense, which is crazy. Who's calling the plays? I don't know. I don't even know his name. Okay. But
somebody understands. Some like 89-year-old Bears fan that's like, hey, run the ball over there.
Well, clearly, like the offense looked better. Let's see. Caleb was getting rid of the fucking ball. He was using his legs. He wasn't baking a cake behind a makeshift paper O-line. So there were what seemed like very obvious things, were just not happening. It was like, I don't know, like Caleb, like he has this reputation and I'm seeing it of being kind of a big play merchant. He was kind of like that in college, right? But it's just, you don't have the time. You don't have the O-line to do that. And the NFL is just completely different. Dudes are going to get on you quickly. Pause.
Yeah. You can't have your way.
And so like my thing is this. DJ Moore has been good for a long time and he's produced with bad quarterbacks. I don't think Caleb Williams is a bad quarterback, but I was wrong. He's not ready. He did not come into this. He's not a Jaden Daniels. He didn't come into this season like ready to just change everything day one. He's the savior, whatever the case may be. But I've seen enough flashes of talent from him that if the coaching situation gets better, if they fix the garbage O-line and they get somebody who is a competent play caller in there, I think that there is hope for the future.
A lot of ifs, my dog. That was a lot of ifs.
No doubt. I mean, dude, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm offering you copium. I'm not offering you a quick fix, but I do think that O-line can be addressed better than like a quarterback problem can be addressed. I think you can go out and find a decent coordinator somewhere if the organization can get their act together, which they haven't for a long time. So I understand the trepidation. But that was my little sprinkle of positivity on your take. But yes, he's bumming us both out. I
have this bubbling pile of just shit about to fall out of my ass, and I call it Jalen Waddle.
We can pause it.
Jalen Waddle fucking sucks at this point.
Oh my God.
I mean, I think he's like wide receiver 60 something, maybe 40 something. I don't know. It's really bad. Some stats. His points per game as average over his first 3 years of his career, 12.2. Solid. Very solid. Nothing wrong with that.
The rookie year we all bought into.
Yes. His points per game this year, 6.3. I've seen him being dropped in certain places. Just straight dropped. You dropped Jalen Waddle?
Well,
Wow.
you know what? Actually, that's a preview. I I actually haven't yet because I haven't graduated Jonathan Brooks from my IR, but I guess
He's
this
the
is
guy you will be.
to the league that Jalen
Okay.
Waddle will be available and he will be someone else's problem.
To just bolster your take there, one of the sites I'm on shows him as the 60th wide receiver.
60. Okay.
You were graciously giving him 40, and he is at the 60th position so far on the season.
My God.
But
I
mean, Tua's whittle brain, we have to somewhat say, is it a fair track record of what his production is at this point? When half your year, I think there was a stat the week Tua came back that him and Waddle and Tyreek Hill had combined on the season for 2 touchdowns up until 2 games ago when Tua came back. So, but I will say, and you probably have been looking at it more than I have, I think we've seen some revive from Tyreek. I'm guessing none of that has been seen from Waddle in these last 2 weeks. I do remember one big catch that he had, but it's not.
And that was all he had. Like he had this big catch in the game, like early on. I think it was like the first play from scrimmage.
It was like a scramble play out on.
He had like a 35-yard catch, and then like he got one more catch, 1 or 2 more small catches for the rest of the game. And it's like, I don't have Jalen Waddle anywhere because this season I just felt like, well, last season I had him and I got really, really frustrated with him limping off the field every other play. So I was like, I'm not playing around with that. What's that, Paul?
I said I let the experts gaslight me into buying back into him.
Yeah. And then I was like, well, like, I think in our Dynasty League, he went in the startup. I think he went in the second round, like late second, because Miro had him. Miro has him, I'm pretty sure. I was like, man, he's just going too high.
I would talk shit about that, but no one's Dynasty team is worse than mine.
That's true.
I've got another dumpster fire of performance compared to where average draft position came in, and that's Davante Adams, man. Like at this point, everybody's just running away from the Jets train wreck that it is. But I tend to remember some very high draft picks of Davante Adams, even with him starting with the Raiders this year, and that he's going to get his. And he's almost outside of the top 40 in wide receivers right now on the year. And it doesn't look like it's getting better.
No, it doesn't. And I will say early on in the draft process, before we really drafted across all of the leagues I'm in, I was like really being bullish on Davante because I'm like, when has he not done it besides his first few years of his career? Once he figured it out. And then as time went on, I started to see like, or maybe not see anything, but I started to get this feeling of like, you know what? I don't trust it. And in pretty much all the drafts I was in, he did fall pretty hard to the point where it's like somebody felt, okay, I have to draft Davante Adams at this point. He's Davante Adams. And he hasn't, even that nerfed like draft position in my own personal leagues has nowhere near paid off.
No, it's the age cliff comes for everybody, and that's why I'm always super reluctant to buy into that because sometimes you see it progressing, sometimes it's just bang, you're done. And I don't want to be the guy when that happens because the worst position to be in fantasy football is trying to sell a distressed asset after everybody's already seen it. When everybody's already seen the fall off, you have a name that you feel committed to that's on your team that you wasted draft capital on. Now it's burning a hole in your roster, and you're trying to sell him to other managers. No, man, it's going to be fine. He got traded to the Jets. No, I saw the game. He's cooked, and it happens fast. And so that's it was a hot potato that came to my hands many times in our drafts, and I just never wanted to hold on.
So I want to like push back a little bit on that, Paul, just because I don't think Davante is cooked. I don't think he's 2016 Davante. I don't think he's cooked. I don't think he's a horrible player. I think his game is like predicates.
I think he's in the oven. I think
Maybe.
he's marinating.
But like
It's
he went from Gardner Minshew / Aiden O'Connell to a completely burnt Aaron Rodgers and a disaster of a Jets team. So, like, honestly, if I think that he was the guy that went to
Garrett Wilson's value.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson's top 5.
well,
Top 5
Garrett Wilson got there off insane volume for a lot of the season as well. So I don't think he's completely cooked. I'm not saying he's ever going to be a wide receiver 1 anymore. I just don't think that Davante Adams is completely burnt toast. I don't think he sucks.
He's never going to end up.
Question was lowered expectations, bro. People who we thought would be doing good. I hear you.
It's a great call out for this year.
Put him in retirement, but fuck, bro.
It's a great call out for this year. Absolutely. I'm just saying, like, if you can get him for pennies on the dollar next season, why not throw him on your bench and just see if he can have a resurgence? But I don't know if it's Aaron Rodgers again on the Jets. Probably not. Well,
I don't think
we'll
Devontae's
see.
going to be there, right? I don't know his contract, but I think this is a one and done.
I'm not sure what his contract details are.
I don't know. I think he might have one more year, but it's dude with the NFL, it's all funny money because, like they can get in and out of contracts, like
Yeah.
With
somebody can also take on part of his contract if they want to. Like, I just think if Davante Adams was the one that went to the Chiefs instead of it being Hopkins, and you flip those roles, I don't know. I think Davante would have had a good game by now with Patrick Mahomes.
That's fair.
I don't think he's a terrible player at this point.
I think Davante and any of these guys, like the Nuke Hopkins of the world, Davante's, I think the
Amari Cooper
possession receiver, I don't think that leaves you right away. I think that he's still been valuable. And the reality is, I think part of the reason why Garrett Wilson's been better since he got traded there is just, there's another target on the other side of the field that draws attention. I still think Davante can get open, but what we like in fantasy from receivers is big plays and explosive plays. I don't know if that's there for him anymore. That's why, like, his name is always going to cost more than his game. And you know this. You've said it probably 100 times here that it's like it's never being out or hating a player. It's just the cost.
Yeah, it's all about cost. Another complete shitstorm player, and holy crap, we tried to warn people, Paul. Don't do it, but we didn't think it'd be this bad with his ADP. Sam LaPupu.
Wow.
I mean, tight end 15. Horrible.
You tried to warn me. I didn't listen.
Well, Dynasty's a little different. I mean, it was understandable. A guy coming off the best rookie season for a tight end ever at the time. And now Brock Bowers is like, hold my fucking beer. But like,
yeah, he fucking is. On my fucking team, he is.
He's a monster. He's a fucking monster. But yeah, man.
You seen his fucking hairpiece, dog?
No.
Marchese. He would be jealous of what you got rocking up top, my dog. This man is struggling by about fucking.
He's already bald.
Strands. Oh, bro. I'm ready to share my screen and show you how bad this 22-year-old phenom, all that is jacked, has the worst like 3-strand comb over that Donald Trump would look at and be like, "Bro, you need to do something about that right now." Please do.
Well,
sorry to bust in there.
I mean, if you couldn't get laid in high school or college, I guess football is your bitch, and you just kick ass at it. Good for him.
I don't think he has any problem.
But Laporta, my God, Laporta being like the tight end 1 in most leagues drafted. Maybe some people still held on to Kelsey or whoever else you want. Probably only Kelsey's the one that was competing for the first drafted tight end in leagues. I mean, he went in the second round.
I think we've done a really good job in naming our picks here so far. of people who have not been hit with injury bug. Has this man literally played in every fucking game and has 25 receptions?
I can look real quick, but I think he
insane.
did. He might have missed one game.
Yeah.
He might have missed one game. Let me look real quick.
I mean,
it feels like he missed
we
every
know
game.
what that Detroit offense is doing. It's almost like he absolutely pissed off the OC and is being left out of game plans, essentially. I don't get it. You're with it. You're right, Marquez. That's a great one to pick out because I thought Laporta was going to have a big year. Wow, dude.
He's played in every game.
He didn't play last week. He didn't play last week. But still, the point stands.
During their 52-point
he
domination.
He missed last game for real?
Yeah.
Okay, my bad. So, but even still, one game missed. It's not.
Still, oh yeah, one game exactly.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, Cade Otton has been. Mark Andrews, who was disastrous to start the season.
Try to take a guess at how many targets, if you haven't seen it already, he has on the season, Laporta.
I mean, if I just said he's got 25 receptions, can't be much more than 30 to 35 targets, is what I would think.
Yeah. He's got 32 targets on the season. And okay, in 11 games then, Paul, or 10 because they had a bye week. So in 10 games.
They have too many dudes. They
too many options.
But it's crazy because like it seems like every other week they're scoring 40 plus. You'd think that he'd be able to be a part of that act, and it's like I just remember he got a long touchdown on some flea flicker fucking wacko shit, and it was like, okay, that was cool. He got that, but like in terms of him just being a functional part of the offense on every play, it's like, dude, what's going on? Is he just? I know that they're a great running team. Is he just run blocking like crazy, and that's what his role has really been diminished to for a fantasy perspective? It's how is someone the tight end 1 is a rookie and then falls off this hard? I wouldn't think it would be this hard. Maybe like, all right, tight end 6 or 7 at the worst, but tight end 15, it's bad. It's bad.
So
it's bad. Okay.
I know. I will again. Dynasty apologist here. I'm gonna do it again.
Here we go. Paul loves making excuses for people.
Detroit.
I don't know why.
Detroit has the top offense in football. Okay.
He's their tight end.
But it's because they can run at will whenever they literally want to. Think of all the points they've scored. All of the teams they've fucking blown out. Jared Goff has over 30 pass attempts twice on the season. He doesn't need to. He like fucking Jahmyr Gibbs.
Amon-Ra has a touchdown in like 5-7 straight games.
For both of them. Both of them.
Amon-Ra has a touchdown in how many straight games? 7,
okay,
8.
But they can't support multiple. Of course, Amon-Ra's the number 1, but they can't support a number 2 and a number 3 with lower pass attempts because they don't have to. I'm not hating. It's a great.
Jamison Williams doesn't have a ton of targets, but he's got a lot of big plays under his belt. He
also has a lot of dud weeks as well.
Yeah, sure.
Games.
Well, I can't fight with Paul's emotional like desperation and his copium. That's really what we're seeing here. Is Paul's very like coping that his dynasty team is relying on this man, and he's just not what he wants him to be. So sorry, Paul. Sorry that happened to you.
Yes, the classic Paul Kiefer. I am never a realist about my team's prospects. That's why I started tanking in week 4.
No, you're a realist, but with this one, you are once again coping.
Trust the process.
Yes, it is.
As
trust
Paul
the
says,
process.
Paul just needs to be.
Okay, but is that not the numbers? Like 30 pass attempts is not a high bar in today's NFL. They run the ball effectively. So I don't think it's a problem of the player being bad. I just think the offense doesn't need to support a ton of receivers is what I'm saying.
Go ahead. If you really want to make the argument, find out how many passing attempts total Jared Goff has, minus the game that he missed. You can take that one away. And then convert it to a percentage of how many of his targets are being sent to Laporta. I think that we're seeing that he's not. Last year, he was a major part of the offense because they didn't have a wide receiver 2 to speak of. I mean, Josh Reynolds probably was that guy. He's not on the team. Khalif Raymond is a journeyman, like whatever. These guys are not important. I think they brought Tim Patrick in once again, another journeyman guy. But like, your points are valid, Paul. But to fall this far, is like unheard of. I
I'm
don't
not
think he
watching the
sucks.
I'm not watching the tape. I will say off of what you just pointed out though, Marchese, at 32 targets, maybe the way and part of that offense is running is they find him more valuable helping with run and pass blocking. I mean,
Yep.
I'm looking at everything above and every tight end essentially that's above him right now. I mean, we're talking, I know Bowers is insane at number 1, has 90 targets on the season, 89 targets on the season. Everybody else is around that like 40 to 60 range. So maybe that's just how they've grown to have him be in that offense. Paul, either way, it spells out, get off the fucking ship.
Yeah, I mean, well, and the reality is that, like, I completely understand that, like, the dream of Sam Laporta being a, like, difference-making tight end in fantasy, at least anytime soon, probably dead. But I still think that the bar to clear for being a tight end 1 in fantasy is still pretty low. And there are opportunities going forward to rehab value. I'll let a dude die on my bench forever. I'm not going to sell a distressed asset. Things change in football. But, like, for example, I don't think Mark Andrews forgot how to be a good tight end. He was a top
example I was going to bring up. How many targets does he have on the year?
Yeah, probably more. But they don't need him every week.
I don't think it's by that much. I don't think Mark Andrews has a ton of targets.
He's got 39, and I don't even think like they target him that much, and he's got 39.
Yeah, Mark Andrews is definitely in that same kind of neighborhood, but he scored more touchdowns. And that's what it comes down to at tight end position. So, okay.
Hey, I'll jump off your point, Andrew, and completely go to like the left with it. I don't cope about this at all. I'm fucking pissed. You know who I'm actually mad about? Not Sam Laporta whatsoever. Dalton fucking Kincaid.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. And I'm gonna go off here because
bring out your popcorn, ladies and gentlemen.
I can find reasons for the Laporta thing. The offense is running great. They can get it on the ground. They can do everything whatsoever. The Buffalo Bills had, Dalton Kincaid's. He had a rookie season that was pretty, fairly, showed some flashes. It was the sophomore season last year, if I'm not mistaken, right? Where he definitely did well for a tight end that was splitting snaps. And this season, I found every reason in the world to fully buy into this dude in every fucking league, even leagues that I didn't even need to start a tight end. But, well, that's probably my own stupidity. Because, like, you just, like, what do you want from a tight end? Which is exactly what you're saying. Laporta isn't necessary all the time. Andrews isn't necessary all the time. If you want to have a great tight end in fantasy, you got to find Mr. Necessary. Dude, they lost Stephon Diggs, who's more Mr. Necessary than Kincaid, the only guy that's been there for 2 seasons, the only guy that had a rapport with Josh Allen. Where is this man? Send out an APB. This is fucking ridiculous.
And it's not for a lack of targets, Paul. You want to take a guess at how many targets he's got on the season from Josh Allen? I told you Brock Bowers is at 89 leading the league. You want to guess where Kincaid's at on targets?
So, and you know what's so funny? Because I don't know like precisely how many, but I do know that the reason why I never jumped off the ship was because he kept getting useless ass targets.
I'll say like 62.
4 yards and falling down.
I'll go with like 62.
You're right there, Marchese. 59 targets, and on those 59 targets, he's got 34 receptions. So clearly, Paul is barking up the right tree here. They need him. They're throwing at him. What the fuck, man?
He sold me, bro. He sold me. Like, him getting hurt was the best thing that happened because I could finally fucking let go. I could finally say, you're not going to hurt me anymore. You're not going to kill my teams anymore. Goodbye.
Well, you know what you did, Paul, which was a great move, and I very much applaud it. Because you know what I want in a tight end? A running back, Taysom Hill. Because you picked him up.
3 touchdowns last week.
And this guy could be a legit league winner. I mean, it's crazy. This 34-year-old Mormon douchebag is just running through New Orleans, like starting the fucking parade because everybody else is dead over there. Rashid Shaheed, dead. Chris Olave, dead. They've never really had a tight end besides, I mean, he's called a tight end. He's not really a tight end, but for fantasy purposes, he's a tight end / quarterback. So, I mean, Juwan Johnson has never really been a thing. He's been a name that people like to every so often be like, all right, he's poking his head out the water. Maybe we take a look at Juwan Jennings. And he's like, up, right back into the fucking abyss. So it's actually wild, man. Like, would he have been the quarterback one last week? I think he would have been.
He might have been, bro, which is crazy. Like, because he's not a fucking tight end. Now, again, he's the cheat code. The league that Andrew keeps referencing where this happened is our home team that actually doesn't require a tight end per se at all, which is why I was a little bit, and I think this is the only reason I was able to get him with my shitty little bit of fab, because, you know, he's going into a bye. He pops, like, let's be fair about Taysom Hill and actually accurate about it. He's good for like a couple of these games a season, right? And then he goes back into his like Taysom Hill like sarcophagus.
He's got to go back to church.
And you know, so it's very possible he never does it again. But
Book
for
of
the
Mormon
amount
is
of
a
time
great
I had, I thought it was worth taking a stab.
I'd love to see it. I haven't seen it.
Like he's essentially a backup vulture running back to Alvin Kamara on a team that has 0 wide receivers. So.
But he can catch the ball and throw the ball. Like, it's just interesting. It's that he's a 34-year-old white dude that's just like playing.
No, you got it. He's basically Mormon Tim Tebow is who he is. That's what
exactly what he is, man. It's amazing. And it's like,
could have extended his career so long if he was not stubborn.
I remember
he became Taysom Hill.
Now that this is like devolved into just talking shit. So my wife, her family's from Gainesville. Part of her family's from Gainesville. I remember when he got signed to the Jags for the preseason, and her family was over, and they're, you know, Gators fans, Jags fans, the whole thing.
Epic coach Urban Meyer.
Urban Meyer.
Use him.
Urban Meyer. You know what this man told me? What his argument for Tim Tebow was? He's a willing blocker. Mofo, I'm a willing blocker. My ass fucking sucks on an NFL field. Are you kidding me? I laughed in his face. I was like, bro, he is going to get cut before the season. He's like, no, he's not. I'm like, okay, man. All right, cool. And then I was like, he was gone. Like, I think it was like week 2 of the preseason. It's like,
and
all right, back to the commentating booth.
I'm fucking coping.
Oh, yeah. No, they were straight coping with that one. It was hilarious.
I've got to head out in a bit, but I want to eat some crow before I leave. The top 3 running backs right now in the league: Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, Alvin Kamara. I think I was about as low and fucking staying away from those 3 names all through my preseason draft looks as much as possible. So I will eat that crow, especially Derrick Henry. I won't lie to you. I got burned last year. I was the first year I ever drafted him in recent memory. Had him, was a tough year. I said, he's fucking done. He's cooked. Isn't going to be shit with the Ravens. King Henry is back in town.
15 touchdowns later.
This has been the year of the old ass running backs. I'm not going to say that I was out on those names, because I definitely wasn't out on those names.
Dude, I was not close.
But I wasn't high enough.
Nope.
I wasn't high enough, clearly, because I didn't end up with them. I mean, but like, you think of it, so it's Henry, it's Barkley, it's Kamara, but it's also James Cook. You know what I'm saying? It's also Joe Mixon.
Joe Mixon has been amazing.
Josh Jacobs is in there. So, like, I think it's just been a funny season this way. I don't know if there's any kind of, like, realness that we can really take from that.
Go ahead. You finish. I have something to...
I was going to say, like, I think that what we've just kind of like illustrated through this conversation or whatever is keeping it simple. Sometimes the easy answer is the right answer. Saquon was good at football and was on a bad team. Derrick Henry is good at football and was on a bad team. They went to good teams and now they look like they're hashtag good at football again. Yeah. Sometimes the answer is that easy.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what I was going to talk about, Paul, was the NFL's philosophy in team building has definitely shifted to the running back is the cherry on top.
Yep.
which is why Saquon never worked out in New York the way we want him. I mean, he was fine for production wise, but in terms of winning games, I'm not going to turn this into a cry about Saquon. But the philosophy, the philosophy is now for these teams, like, that's too big of a violin. There you go. Like, okay, our roster, especially offensively, our roster is basically set. We are very comfortable with our roster. Let's pluck a talented running back off of a shitburger team that's not going to do shit with them. They want to leave. Who cares if they're a little bit aging? Because now we're getting them on their second contract where we can just sign them for 3-4 years, but really it's a 2-year deal when it comes down to it. And when the wheels are starting to fall off, who gives a fuck? We've got still the last prime of their career on a good team. Mixon, like you said, Mixon, Henry, Saquon. Kamara's always been there, but whatever. I mean, he's older, but who cares? Even to a certain extent, James Conner has been great. Arizona's offense has gotten better. So he's an older running back.
And rushing attempts are up across the league. They're up. I think people are kind of rejecting the like move of the last 10 years that everything has to be all, which some teams still do. I'm not saying that like the Bengals, right, are passing all over the fucking field still, but like there are teams that are recognizing that everybody's playing too high safety now. Everybody's doing this like soft zone bullshit. Like I feel like there's been a correction of running backs actually having more relevancy in the offenses too, just as a league-wide rule, what I've noticed.
I agree. I'll put it out there. I don't remember who it was, one of you two on an earlier pod this season, but I think one of you were all in on Bijan in one of your leagues, and Bijan showing himself here this year at number 4 behind those big 3. So
it couldn't be either of us, I think. I don't remember, but I think we were both pretty.
You drafted him in Dynasty, like 2nd or 3rd overall, whatever pick you had. And then I have him as a keeper in a league. So
it was a rough start to the year, but he's getting some legs and having some.
It was right when I was starting to get really, really frustrated because I'm like, dude, what the fuck? Like,
no, I thought you were going to get pissed off enough to trade him to me, but that didn't happen.
Gentlemen, I got some obligations I got to see too. I really appreciate the invite on here and would love to rejoin with any futures that y'all have. So thank you for the time, and you guys have a good one.
Come on.
All right, man. Great seeing you. Great talking to you, dude.
Appreciate it, boys.
Later, bro. So someone else I want to talk about, and we've talked about this one already. This is the last one I have on my list. I actually called them my full Dudley Dursleys. That was my name for it, my fancy name for it, because they're all duds. But we've talked about this guy before.
Like that. You should have introduced that at the top. That's great.
The conversation kind of just got going. But man, we've talked about this already a bunch of times. But just Patrick Mahomes. I mean, QB 13 on the season. You know how many times he scored 20 points this year?
Well, let me actually guess. I want to say.
It's not 0.
3 times.
No, sir.
Twice?
One time, and it was against the Bucks.
Of course.
But he hasn't hit 20
in
points.
Overtime, no less.
That's right. Yes, ended up being an overtime game. Really 22 points, 22 or more points is where your quarterback is truly making an impact for your fantasy team. That is like the, what did you used to always say? The Mason-Dixon line. Yes. Of what you want for a quarterback really making a difference, an impact on your team. It's like 22 plus points is like, oh, okay, awesome. He's done that one time this season. He's QB 13 on the year. Like, he doesn't murder you like Anthony Richardson was for a bunch of weeks, or who else was like just completely dudding. Like Caleb Williams was completely dudding for a little bit. But it's just not what you want from the guy who was like the QB3 drafted in most redraft leagues.
I think, dude, we're doubling down on this, but it's even more true now than it was. I think we checked in on the season, after week 4, I think, something like that. But he's the new Tom Brady. Fantasy football can be an emotional game. When you know a quarterback is the best, there's a cognitive dissonance. You know that Patrick Mahomes in a vacuum, in a moment, is the best quarterback in the NFL. So there's always going to feel like that pull. Well, why wouldn't he be the best for fantasy? What if X-Worthy works out? What if, with the Rashee Rice,
Hollywood Brown didn't get hurt, and Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce was 5 years younger.
There were a lot of reasons to try to buy in and buy the dip this year, because I don't think he was going quite as high as he has in the past, right? But at the end of the day, I feel like this might be the first year that he might actually not be drafted as a top 3 ADP quarterback in fantasy. I hope that it finally regresses to the level of where it's supposed to be. But he's the worst. He's like the worst value in fantasy, because he's a name that emotionally you feel like you can't let go. But the reality is he's a streamer level quarterback. He's not going to have a ton of passing attempts, generally speaking, unless things are going poorly in the game. And they don't really like to take shots down the field. They have a dink and dunk style offense. They run the ball a lot, which are things that you hate for fantasy quarterbacks.
Pretty much. I mean, it's all those things you said working against them. I believe that Patrick Mahomes will have a renaissance season at some point when the team shifts. If their defense starts to if they get to a point where their defense isn't as good, and he actually gets a true wide receiver 1, because he hasn't had one since Tyreek Hill. Even Rashee Rice I think he is an elevated possession receiver, which is fine. He's good. He's good with the ball in his hands and all that. Unfortunately, he decided he was going to take his wide receiver 1 out this year after throwing a terrible pick, which I'm still salty about, because Rashee Rice is doing great. Yeah. All that aside, there will be a point in Mahomes' career where he's going to have to be more of a magician again, and the fantasy points will go back up. But as it stands right now, with him being a good running team and a very good defense on the other side, he is a streaming level guy. And I think we hit them all. The worst values in fantasy this season, there's probably more, but as it's Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Waddle, Sam Laporta, highly drafted players who are just really been sinking your teams. That sucks. At this point in the season, it's too late to get out besides just dropping, or maybe you can, if you have a league that you can still trade, I guess you can trade them, but you're not going to get much for them at this point. And fantasy's wild, man. It's hard. Hard to predict year to year, week to week even.
Yeah, you had to get out early, but just to your point, man, all of those reasons are why it's just not a good fantasy asset whatsoever. I mean, you look at a guy like Joe Burrow, right? He's got weapons all over the place. They are a pass-happy team, and it's also a defense that's absolutely awful. So all of those things have come together for the exact palindrome of that. A team that on Sundays is very bad. They're going to miss the playoffs. They're in big trouble.
4-17.
But for fantasy, he's been a revelation. He's the number 2 QB on the year. That's really what you want. You want a team that says, we don't have it. Talented quarterback, you have to save us.
Right. Yeah. And having one of the best receivers in the world on your team doesn't hurt. He's definitely created a lot of those yards for Joe Burrow and touchdowns. But yes, he's been great.
I know we don't normally do this because it's a fantasy football thing, and we will check in when the weeks actually matter about who the fantasy MVP is. But I just out of curiosity, since we're talking quarterbacks, who do you have as the MVP this year?
In fantasy or in real life?
In real life, I think we've seen enough weeks that
Bo Nix.
we're solidified.
No, I'm kidding. Bo Nix should absolutely be ahead of Jaden Daniels at this point in rookie, though, but he's not because of popularity contest shit.
I don't know if that's necessarily true. Like, I think that they're trending in different directions because
the numbers are better for Nix, though.
Started way hotter. But I also think that, like, I look, and I'm not going to, because that's not the question I asked. But if we're
I'll answer your question. Lamar Jackson.
I agree. I think Lamar over the course of a season for sure has just had the baudiest numbers, and but I don't know. I mean, I think you can make a very compelling case for Josh Allen as well, even though, like, I don't know, like his like numbers maybe don't pop off the page the same way they have in recent years. I think he's had one of his best seasons like ever. He has 3 turnovers on the year.
That's amazing.
When's the last time you could say that about Josh Allen?
Yeah, that shows so much growth, man. That's awesome. Yeah, absolutely. You can make that argument. I'm not going to pound the table for one or the other. I kind of think to what you're alluding to.
I'm also thinking the Bills may end up potentially in a better spot. My prediction than the Ravens.
They certainly could. I think both of these players, in a sense, I talked to you about it a few weeks ago when I was in town, saying, like, believe it or not, Lamar Jackson is having a breakout season because as a passer, he's finally found consistency where in the past it's been, he was a good passer, but he had a lot of like very bad moments as a passer. Those are almost all gone. And he's creating big plays with his arm down the field too, like a Josh Allen, like moving around and finding the extending plays, what I'm trying to say, extending plays and finding guys downfield. He's not just running with the ball. So, like, I think going forward for fantasy, which is not really saying much, everybody knows this, but like dynasty leagues, those are 2 of the best players you could possibly have on your dynasty teams is Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, because I don't think that their production anytime soon is going away. I don't care if their age is like starting to creep up to 30. They're still going to be able to use their legs enough. And if the development as a passer is ultimately like what's going to matter for longevity, and they've both done that.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. Like, and yeah, you're right. Lamar is having a breakout season the year after winning MVP.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy.
Kind of crazy to say, but yeah, I mean, I think it's the same thing that's been happening with Josh Allen, where he's cleaned up a couple of the problems that he's had in the past. Where I don't think the rushing numbers are quite what they were. I don't have this in front of me, but just from what it feels like, I don't think the rushing stats are quite what they were last season. But he is doing a lot of his damage from the pocket, from extending plays, like running to throw. I think he's just overall just been better on a better offense. He's been more necessary because their defense fell off a cliff as well. But yeah, no, it's interesting that we use the word development in the NFL whenever we talk about, we seem to only use that word in reference to a quarterback on their rookie contract when we're trying to figure out if they're going to be anything in the NFL, if they're going to be able to maybe be a franchise quarterback, where I kind of like that you use that word because development continues to happen throughout your career. Josh Allen is still developing. Lamar Jackson is still developing. probably Mahomes is still developing, which
There's
is
facets to your game, yeah, that you can develop.
scary. Like when we grew up, it was Manning, it was Brady, A-Rod, right? To some degree as well, like the
Both
guy.
Mannings. Both Mannings. There was two.
I never saw Eli as a real threat for that top spot among quarterbacks. He
Oh,
led.
not for top spot. I'm just saying he's a Hall of Famer, so he will be very soon. I'm living in the past, glory days. That's all I have. That's all I have left.
Yeah, I mean, like, no, I don't disagree that he's a Hall of Famer, but I'm saying, like, when I'm saying those guys, I'm talking about like the quarterbacks that the fucking dudes like us would be sitting around being like, who's the best quarterback in the NFL? You know what I'm saying? Like, because
Yeah.
Brady obviously won all the Super Bowls, so he gets to walk away with the prize ultimately. But for a long time, it was, oh, Peyton Manning's got the stats, and oh, Tom Brady's got the rings, and like people say, oh, Aaron Rodgers has the tools, and he's got the prettiest deep ball, or whatever, So like, I think it's cool that we have this generation of quarterbacks that has really separated themselves. And if you want to say that it's Patty and Josh, I'm not going to argue with you. But what I think is cool is there's probably this Lamar guy. Like, I think that if he can really like have playoff success, I think he can find himself in that conversation where 3 seasons ago I would have said that you were an absolute sicko if you even tried to put him in there. But just the rivalry between Allen and Mahomes, I think, is something I don't want to take for granted because I don't think
Lamar's
around forever.
very true. And Lamar's getting into that range too. And it's like they're all in the AFC. So it feels a lot like Michael Jordan right now.
Yeah.
Where how do we get past Jordan? Okay, well now it's how do you get past Mahomes? Because he's sitting there in the AFC Championship ready to just fuck you up any way possible and just rip your heart out at the end of a game. And,
it's always that. It's always that. It's one thing if you just blast a team like 50-23. It's like you leave no doubt, but it's never that. It's always the end of the game, which feels so much worse.
Yeah, it was just the same thing as Brady in a lot of these playoff games. It was like later into the playoffs, getting to like the championship and the Super Bowl, where it was like Brady's going to find a way to come back. I mean, Atlanta knows this more than anybody. Like, holy crap, 28-3, right? Everybody knows the meme. 28-3, 28-3. Like, yeah, they're going to make the comeback. It's crazy. And that's the thing that Patrick Mahomes possesses over anybody else is that when all the chips are down, like he is going to find a way to put his team in a position to win. So anyways, we're just guzzling about that right now. There's somebody who I wanted to talk about. I didn't write this name down, but I don't want to give him a pass. I auto-drafted him, so that should be a dead giveaway. I've since dropped him weeks ago. But another guy that I think which I think you drafted him in Dynasty, but you didn't draft him super high. He kind of fell a little bit. For most leagues, he was going in like the 4th, 5th round. But CJ Stroud has been pretty much a bust.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like when you're talking about fantasy for this season, he certainly has not like returned the value. But it was a bad pick for Dynasty from where I drafted him for a multitude of reasons. I think I just fell in love with the idea of I saw the rookie season. I was like, okay, this guy's going to be a guy for 10 straight years. I don't want to have to think about and worry about my quarterback spot. This league incentivizes passing touchdowns more. So I was just like, hey, he's just going to, he's got the weapons. He's just going to keep doing what he's doing. He's had a down year.
Yeah.
Because the conversation for dynasty and for a redraft are always very different for me.
Of course.
Like,
Yeah.
when I'm thinking about redraft, yeah, he's been a fucking disaster. Like he's basically like, I mean, I'm sure some teams still hang on to him, but I'm not really sure why, because he's a streamable quarterback. But for dynasty, I still haven't seen anything on the field that tells me he's just lost it. I think he's just having a down year.
I fully agree there, man. I do think CJ Stroud is a very good quarterback, and he will be fine. He lost Nico for a lot of the season. Tank Dell has dropped a lot of fucking passes down the field. Asshole. His O-line is decimated. Like, it's long term, it's going to get better for CJ Stroud.
I'll tell you what, man. You said it. You know, here's more. You got more of Paul Copium, but it's not all Copium. Okay. I'm not worried about CJ Stroud at all. You know who I am worried about?
Nathaniel.
am worried about Tank.
Nathaniel
I,
Dell. He doesn't get to be called Tank by me anymore.
Dude, I mean, I just he's coming off the injury. Obviously, again, dynasty investment. He deserves at least one more season to to be one more full season removed from that injury, but it's not looking good. It's not looking good right now. You know, I was wrong. Hand up, eat the crow, all the things. I thought it was Tank over Nico. I mean, that right there that take is already dead. Well, no matter whether Tank figures it out as a receiver or not, that take is dead.
Nico is one of the best wide receivers in the league, man, and that's why I pounded the table for him so hard early on before draft season, during draft season. I'm not going to make another. I've victory lapped that 1,000 times. I'm not going to keep doing that.
I thought you were going to.
Nope. I'm not doing that. Everybody knows now that's the case. So whatever. What I want to say is this.
He's the man.
What I want to say is this, Paul. I have thought a lot about this. I have done research about it. Now, don't cancel me for this, people. I'm a bit of a sizist.
You only like the big wieners, huh?
Well, I can't confirm that, but if a wide receiver is like sub 180, and especially if they're short, they just don't work out as wide receiver ones. Stop pretending they can. They can be useful wide receiver twos. Typically, they're going to end up being in a role where they are not relied upon on they're useful for a team, but they're like boomer bust players typically. Even Devonta Smith is that way. Game script is going to matter a lot more for a lot of these like more slight receivers where they're not the possession guy. They're not the chain movers. They need to be a big play, maybe to hit a screen. I'm sorry he's on your dynasty team as well. I was always a little bit weary of Jordan Addison for that reason. If they are slender, if they're tall and slender, I'm a little bit more open. But if they're short and skinny and like sub 180, I worry about them. And that's a big reason why he's not quite as bad in this category, but I was very on the fence about Jordan Reed.
Jaden Reed, you mean?
I'm sorry. Jordan Reed. God, was that the tight end from a while back? Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed has been very good. He's been up and down for a lot of reasons. They've been more of a running team lately, the Packers. But I like Jaden Reed. I worry about those types of players. I mean, you can raise me John Ross if you'd like. A top, I think he was drafted 9th overall by the Bengals. He's like 165-pound speedster. unfortunately, that archetype is just a scary one for me. In Dynasty, especially, redraft, whatever. You can have a year. In Dynasty, I will never invest in a short speedster like that. I just won't do it. I didn't want Xavier Worthy. I don't trust them to really pan out as like a top end receiver long term. I'll never trust it.
That's completely fair. I mean, football's a rough game, right? That's a big part of it. Getting off the brakes can be challenging for a receiver like that. Against physical corners. And yeah, like, look, there's you laid out great use cases. I mean, Jayden Reed is a wide receiver one in fantasy, but I also understand and I feel the frustration every week. He's going to have weeks that are on and off because, he's not an every down player. He's not earning generally very big targets down the field. He has to kind of get it with short area quicks. Take a Zay Flowers, for example. Now Zay is a little bigger, right? I don't remember like his measurables.
He's like
off top
5'9", 175, maybe 180.
Yeah, well, okay, so actually worse. In terms
he's
of
a little
size.
smaller than Jayden for sure.
Yeah, so I think of the difference with Zay, though, at least what it seems like to me, and that this is not really predictive of any receivers like that, but Lamar is his quarterback. If your quarterback can gain you an extra 4 seconds on a play, you can find an open area of the field with your quickness and make things happen.
He has 8 on those scramble drills. He's been great on those.
Yeah, so that's
Zay Flowers, I mean.
Yeah, that's something that works in his favor. But like, I get it, dude. Like, it's not the frustration with you got me nailed, right? My little team. I've got these diminutive Debo type of guys. That kind of get involved like all over the field. I think they can be useful players, but yes, I agree that the prototypical big X receiver is better for fantasy in general.
And you don't have to be Plexico Burress anymore. You don't have to be Mike Evans. You don't. You can be. That you certainly can work. We've seen that. But 5'11" to 6'2", and at least close to 200, if not over 200, is kind of like the prototype receiver now. And that's what you want. I mean, let me ask you about a guy who's on one of your favorite teams, who's a little bit shorter himself, Josh Downs. What I'm looking at it now, 5'9", 170. Had a good season. Wide receiver 17. I think you traded for him in Dynasty as well. I like him a lot.
I love me some slotty receivers.
Yeah, I like him a lot. I think his talent as a receiver is great. I would buy into him again. But it's a little worrisome when let's put it this way. We'll wrap this up soon because we're not even talking about fantasy anymore. We're talking about football philosophies and whatnot, which is cool.
Well, no, this is a fantasy philosophy too. I think
it is. Okay, you're right. It is. But I guess what I'm getting into is a football philosophy, and I'm thinking of long term. You're a Colts fan. We're both very familiar with Ravens. We see enough games. We have enough of their fantasy assets to pay attention to the Ravens. Doesn't it feel like both of those organizations want to find a true wide receiver one? Like somebody that is of the Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson mold. Wouldn't they like jump at the chance? Doesn't it feel that way? Because yes, Josh Downs has had a very solid season. really is more of a slot guy. He can absolutely get down the field and get open down the field. He's a very good player. I don't think Michael Pittman is really proven to be a true wide receiver one, even though he's got the size. If they could get one of those guys in, like, I don't know, the Colts probably don't get the chance to draft this player, but like if a Tet McMillan, who I don't know how much research you've done yet, but he's like a 6'5", like major stud.
Have you seen my dynasty record, bro?
I know,
I've been looking.
But you're junking for Genty, I know. So
yes. Well, but you got to be ready for all of it. You got to be ready for all of it.
Yes, sure.
I've been debating between Travis and Tet because Tet seems like the more.
You mean Ashton? You said Travis.
Well, because Travis Hunter is up there on the fantasy.
Okay. I was gonna say, well, I think he's gonna play more corner than receiver in the NFL, but that's a whole other conversation.
That's the part that like was confusing me because it's like, well, if he wants money, you would think that he would push for that aspect of. But regardless, all this is going to get resolved by the draft. I don't, I'm just looking at it now.
Doesn't matter right now.
The NFL is going to tell me what they think of these guys, anyways. But like, so regardless, yes, both of those organizations have been hunting for a long time for a traditional X receiver, because when you have these smaller guys that have short area quickness, it probably reduces a little bit of like your offense's like maybe explosiveness in a way. But I'm going to push back a little bit only because there's kind of two problems. Number one, for Anthony Richardson right now, and for a good portion of Lamar Jackson's early career, that dude would have been wasted. Like,
yeah,
if a guy's winning in a physical way, you've got to be accurate enough to give them a 50-50 ball they can win and have the confidence to do that. And right now, A-Rich certainly doesn't have that kind of accuracy. And Lamar never strikes me as the guy that's going to dot the sideline. You know what I'm saying? Like, or give you a back shoulder while somebody's draped over you. Like, he wants the bare naked wide receiver in the middle of the field that he can float one to. And I think that's why these guys have value. Like, okay, think about all the guys that are winning against zone defense right now. Yes, like they are also like the best receivers in the NFL are doing both. They're winning man and they're winning zone. But I think for football, there's always going to be a place for someone who can get open quickly and reliably for easy profits, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
There's an absolutely a use and a role for both. Both are valuable for fantasy. The point that I'm trying to make is the volume for guys like that, for these 5'11" sub 5'11" and shorter, sub 180 type archetypes. That volume, I don't think teams really want them getting. Like, in an ideal world, they're going to say, okay, cool, let's go. Who's a free agent this year? Oh, T. Higgins is a free agent. Bring him to the Colts. Like, we need this physical ball winner on our team. Tet McMillan, like I mentioned already, are one of these. I'm not familiar with every receiver in the draft coming out, but like, I'm just using him as an example because he's a big player. He's like 6'5". I think that these teams, ideally, they want that. They want that on the other side of these. Like, they don't want Josh Downs getting 12 targets a game. I don't think that's an ideal situation for the Colts. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think that's going to last forever. But you can, in a season where they become Mr. Necessary, great. They're great for redraft. But like, and they might have a season or two in Dynasty where it's like, hell yeah, this guy is the wide receiver one right now.
Oh yeah, brother. I mean, believe me, like, that's why I'm not declaring keepers until like the week before the season or whenever we kick off, or the draft rather,
Yeah.
for fantasy, because that will change everything. The Jaden Reeds of the world, like, yeah, the Packers need an actual receiver. Like, Christian Watson clearly is not it. He's an athletic freak, but that's pretty much all he is at this point. And the reality is, here's the deal. Jordan Love has been fine, but if the Packers are actually serious about making good on the Super Bowl aspirations that everybody's talking crap about, their best receiver and number one receiver needs to actually be a full-time player in 2 wide receiver sets. And Jaden Reed is not. So
Yeah.
take that for what it is.
Absolutely. So we'll wrap this up here in a bit. I wanted to get back to a conversation we had a while back, because we were talking about these older running backs. I'll ask you 2 questions at once. With Derrick Henry, next year, do you personally fade him again because of age? And do you think that the fantasy community does? Or do you think that they're just like, screw it, Derrick Henry is, Thanos, he'll be fine?
I mean, that's going to depend on how he looks and how he holds up the rest of the season. But dude,
assuming it goes the way it's been going, let's
if it goes the way it's been going, again, I am not going to be the Derrick Henry fading guy. I did not fade him, but I just
no. I'm just saying, do you think you will next year? Do you think you will next year because of his age?
No, it's there. I literally just said this earlier in this exact show, that I don't want to be the guy holding the bag on the age cliff. But outliers exist. Athletic outliers exist. I haven't seen anything from Henry that shows that he's slowing down, and I will not fail to draft him. I think I said that right. Ever.
Yeah.
For as long as he's on the fucking Ravens, because as we said, and you can literally go back to the very first show we did this season, in the off season. Even if it's not great, even if he doesn't get a ton of volume or yards, maybe they draft a running back behind him. Who cares? He is getting 15 touchdowns. And that's enough. That's literally enough by itself. Do they get Janty? I don't care. Because no matter what, even if you take away Derrick Henry's, if you take away his yardage, he's still an RB2.
For sure. Yeah. I think Genty is the only running back that goes in the first round this year in the actual NFL draft.
By the way, that would be wild. But even then, I still think it would be worthwhile.
You never know. Teams can still trade up if they really wanted to, they could still do that. The draft is a whole nother fucking topic. But yeah, assuming that stays the same, the question really, does he get drafted in the first round again? Assuming he keeps his pace up and he's on the Ravens, and which he will be, and all that.
He was on the borderline. He wasn't really a first round pick
No, he was like a mid-second is where his ADP kind of settled.
I think he'll go. I think he'll go in the first, in the late first, man. I mean, dude, you can't have the kind of season that he's having and not have that happen. I understand he's going to be 31, but the man looks as good as he's ever looked, and he's going to finish the season with what? I mean, are we talking?
He has 15 touchdowns now.
Is he going to get to 400 fantasy points? I don't know, but he's got a lot.
That would be wild. I don't know.
I mean, I'm probably pontificating on that, but he's going to crush the field.
He's got 221 right now. He has 221 right now. Has not had his bye week yet. as well. But points per game are 20 points per game is his average, half PPR. He doesn't catch many passes, so PPR is not that big a factor for him.
Yeah. So, I mean, but regardless, like, again, as I do have a tendency to wax poetic when I get going, but my point is that, like, I know that there will be a question mark about his age going into next season, but he's going to finish as the running back 1 in fantasy. And so how can you go into next season and not take him in the first round if he's the running back 1? Like,
yeah,
maybe he won't be the first running back off the board, but I just cannot see a scenario where he's not a first round pick.
If McCaffrey has a good end of the season, and assuming that the 49ers are not even a lock to make the playoffs, they're like 5-5.
Yeah.
But like, let's just say they do, and
Henry over
McCaffrey looks good.
I don't care what I see. Henry over C-Mac.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And for me, it's a very simple reason. Henry's only injury in recent years has been a broken foot that he fully healed from. C-Mac just went to Germany to get some, like, whatever, like a Nazi DNA put into his Achilles. It's like, I don't like that. Like, he might look great. He might finish the season great. I'm a basketball fan, clearly. I watched Kobe get those platelets in his Achilles or whatever, and he had a stretch where he kind of looked like Kobe, and then his body fell apart again. Don't like it. Don't like it.
So you just feel like there's going to be too much maintenance for him going forward, that it's going to affect your trust in him being healthy.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm gonna go with the guy that had the healthy season, that had the full healthy season, even if he is older. Like, I still think C-Mac, of course, is going to stay valuable because he's so gifted and like is a machine. But, like, those types of tendon and, like, tissue injuries, I just don't like them, man. I just don't. Like, if you were to put a revolver to the back of my head now and say, Paul, you have to pick the top 3 running backs for next season right now without seeing any of the rest of the fantasy year, I'm going to tell you Derek Barkley Bijan, because they are on teams that generally stay in positive game scripts. They're healthy. They've been very productive. And I trust him going forward. That's my, that may not be the ADP, but that's the feeling that I have.
I think, and extending that list a little bit further out, Mixon's right there. I mean, he's been an animal. I think he's the number 1 running back on points per game, actually, because he missed a few games. So that's why he's not. He's been amazing. CMC.
A little reckless on a 28-year-old running back, if you ask me. But I think that, I mean, he's going to have to get taken super high again. But the only reason that I don't put him in that same tier personally is just because what if Houston rebalances their offense again next season? Because, again, we just talked about how CJ Stroud's been disappointing. Well, disappointing is Houston running away with that division and going.
They're going to want to. They're going to want to, but I don't. The best laid plans don't always work. So they know they have Mixon. We'll see next year. I think they're definitely going to try to become a more balanced offense. So then, like, right after that, CMC, and honestly, man, we haven't even talked about him this episode, but Devon Achane is so freaking valuable. He has got such a safe floor. Besides getting hurt, because he has gotten hurt a lot throughout his first few years in the league. But my God, he's like a lock for 20 points when he plays a full game, because he's getting so many targets. He's can always break.
I mean,
like,
he's been great. And obviously, like, look, another example, right? Raheem fell off the cliff. 20 touchdowns last year, a total non-factor this year. Life comes at you fast in football. And Devon hasn't been like the crazy, like having the crazy explosive plays on the ground so much. But I wanted to say this earlier when we were talking about Waddle, and I think we just pivoted off of that conversation to something else. But Waddle's drop off, I think, has a lot more to do with Devon's emergence.
It does.
And John Smith's emergence and just how they want to use him in the offense for whatever fucking reason. I don't think, like, again, I know that you might say, well, who cares, Paul? The results is the results. But I don't think
defenses
it's necessarily just sucking. I think that they found other avenues for those short passes that Tua likes better. I don't know why.
Well, there's a lot of theories. It could be one of them could be we need Waddle, not Waddle. We need Tua to get the ball out of his hands quick because we can't risk another concussion. He's allowed one concussion a year at this point. Only one a year. That's what he's capped at. Any more than one concussion a year, and it's a problem. So I think that's part of it. Waddle is not, I don't think we've got a chance to say this, but Waddle is not a bad player at all. I think Waddle, in fact, is a very good player. If I came off that way, this season he sucks for fantasy. But I think Waddle is a very good player. For whatever reason, it's just not his talent is just not being utilized by Miami. Pretty crazy. So now that people are dropping him, we'll probably go off for a 25-point game. People will spend a bunch of fab on him, and then he'll fucking bust again. That's fantasy football.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like we have to understand that roles change over time. Like, like he's gonna be on the Dolphins at least another season or two, right? He's not going anywhere.
They'll probably re-sign him.
Yeah, and I don't know why they wouldn't. Like, is Jonnu
Tyreek Hill is
really,
not young.
Yeah, like, is Jonnu Smith really like a part of their future plans?
Not long term. He's older as well.
Tyreek, and this is another guy. Again, you didn't really bring this up, but whatever. We're talking about it now. Is Reek just unquestionably that kind of guy that I just said about Derrick Henry, that I'm going to diamond hands him until he shows me that he falls off? Or is he a guy that you're a little scared of going into next season?
I'm not scared of Tyreek Hill at all. This has been a funky season for Miami. Their quarterback was out for a long time. Tyreek Hill also hurt his wrist. I don't know about the whole freaking, but it's the cop's fault. I don't know about all that shit, but doesn't really matter. He's playing hurt. Listen, when next season comes around, unless Tyreek Hill has some like crazy reemergence in his season that everyone's fears will be completely washed away. If he keeps going at this kind of like mediocre, lackluster pace, next season comes around and he's like a third round ADP, I have no issues drafting that kind of upside. I did the same thing with Cooper Kupp this year. Drafted him in the 4th. Unfortunately, he was hurt for a while.
By the dip.
But yeah, I mean, people are, I guess you could probably put that on the list of quiet good seasons. His wide receiver overall totals aren't great because he missed like 4 or 5 weeks, but his points per game are up there. He's at like 16 points per game, half PPR. So he's been totally good, totally fine.
Yes, and look, like, I think Cooper was a steal for you, and it makes your team very dangerous. Might as well segue into that and end it on that shit.
Our Game of Thrones team matchup.
Yeah, man, battle for you can knock me off my cliff here. I've been on the number 1 seed train for a few weeks here, but I think your team's pretty scary. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Well, obviously I like my team. I think I'm like number 3 in that league. I think I'm like third in overall total points. So solid. Can't complain. No Bijan for me this week, so that hurts. But I need Terry McLaurin to not completely dud. Need Derrick Henry to. I really just need the Ravens to be winning the game for most of it, so that he can do what he does. Because he is a freight train. When the game script is in the Ravens' favor, he just freaking rolls through.
That's really that's what I think the matchup is going to come down to us. And for the people, I can give them a little bit of overview. Lamar versus Herbie.
Same game, which is fun.
Same game. And there's more from that same game, by the way. Stay tuned. There's a lot like that game. That game's going to be our whole fucking matchup. Like our matchup really will be. It all comes down to Monday night.
And we've got Bucky Irving versus Tyrone Tracy in the same game as well.
Yeah, which for me, that's still insert Tampa running back here. I'm gonna tilt that decision down to the lead. I'm leaning Bucky. Probably gonna go Bucky. We'll see. J.K. Dobbins again.
You should probably go Sean Tucker. Just saying.
I'm sure you'd like that.
They're going to blow us out so bad. They're going to bring Sean Tucker in at the end of the game. He's going to score.
That might be the galaxy brain move, to be honest with you. And hilariously, it wouldn't necessarily shock me if he had, because the same thing happened. The only other blowout they had was Sean had 22 carries in the fourth quarter and went crazy.
Yeah, the whole offense for a quarter was just him, and he was fucking producing.
He was going on. It was against the Saints, right?
I don't remember. I think it was because the Saints for a while were just letting everybody run all over them.
AJB versus Josh Downs. I would probably give myself the edge there.
You should.
The Eagles, but the thing is, man, that passing pie is low. He's either going to make it on a big play or not, which, hey, guess what, Andrew? It's going to be the running theme for the rest of my team. Zay Flowers, capable of a big week. We'll see. It's either going to be a heavy passing game for Lamar, which I will like, or it'll be a game script for you and Henry. That'll be interesting to see. I have mini Debo in Jaden Reed, and you have big fat Debo.
Who has been disappointing.
George Kittle versus Cooper Kupp in the battle of the olds. The olds, but still good. And then, some kickers and defenses. Fuck it, not gonna talk about that. But I think,
how much is it gonna? How much is it gonna pain? It's gonna be mixed feelings when the Bucks go for a fumble 6, and you're playing against them in fantasy. But
I know that's why you did that, you fucker. I know that's why you did it.
And me as a Giants fan,
let me truly be happy.
And me as a Giants fan, it's doubly good for me because the tank is fully on. So I'm just lose.
Yeah, you need Tyrone to do something. But yeah, definitely, that was a great pickup. I'm going to be honest with you. I thought that I could mess around and wait for
not in this league. This league is too savvy.
I got them in every other league. I got Tampa in every other league I'm in. I just I thought I could afford to wait one more week. But, you snooze, you lose in this game, and their playoff schedule is, oh, wow. But, we'll see. Their defense, I still think their defense is at least above league average. I also think that they've played the best part of their schedule through 6 weeks. So it's going to be interesting to see how they do down the stretch.
Just for a little bit more context of how truly close our matchup is projection wise, it by it might be a totally different story come like afternoon on Sunday. But honestly, we don't even have that many players going until later in the week in the day. Neither of us have Thursday night players, which thank God I can just fucking watch a Thursday night game and not give a shit. But for more context, Sleeper says the start sit accuracy. So we're both like on par of how much we know our own teams, I guess. 87.7 average in terms of accuracy starting players, both the same. Exactly the same. Exactly the same. And then your points per game, average points per game is 115.64. Mine's 115.38.
Dude, this is evenly matched together. This is going to be fun. I think it's going to be fun.
I hope so, man. It's like, it's going to just be like, you know what I can see happening though is Lamar Jackson just having one of those crazy games, just having a 30 burger. Like that's what I could see being.
He would be due for it because he shit the bed for an L for me last week.
The Steelers always play him well.
Yeah, dude, and I
need Debo to show up. How can
you sit Lamar? I knew that.
Oh, there's no sitting Lamar.
I knew this was a bad spot, but I don't have. Some people might be spicy enough. I don't have the strength to bench my guy like that.
No, man, you don't bench Lamar.
It's a bad spot.
Now the question does become a few wild cards for this matchup is, does Pacheco play? And if he does, but how much does he play? And do I start Tony Pollard? And I'm not asking for you advice from you because I know you're not going to give me that advice, but do I start Pollard over Debo? Because Debo has not been very good. I mean, he's been pretty underwhelming. With Kittle back and everything, I don't know. I mean, I'm probably going to start him and hope for like 10 points. Pretty much where I'm at with Debo.
Yeah, I mean, I think that first of all, I kind of like that game for some sneaky scoring. First of all, I think that's a sweaty decision. And dude, like the same way that you're fucking being transparent here, I am too. Like, I don't know what to do about Pacheco. Like, there's a big part of me that's like, well, motherfucker, you've waited for him this damn long. You might.
And Carolina's the matchup.
And Carolina's the matchup, dude. Carolina's the matchup. Yeah. But there's risk, right? I mean, like it would make perfect sense for Kansas City to not like give him like 30 carries right away, right? Like
he's practicing. You're right. Yes. He's practicing. I think he's going to be active. If I had to put money on it, I think he's going to be active and he's going to get like 20% of the snaps. That's what I would guess. What happened?
No. It's going to feel real bad. And I'm telling you, like, I know what my like nightmare is for this stupid ass game is that Jaden Reed gooses or pseudo gooses. And Isaiah Pacheco has, 75 yards and 2 short yardage touchdowns. That's like that. That's like the image that is like in my mind right now of Kansas City. They just don't care. Like, rushing for 5 total scores on Carolina. Hey, Pacheco, you want a couple scores? Kareem, you get a couple scores. Fucking Carson Steele, get in there. Like that's the game script I see in my mind.
I think, after losing, they're going to like. You've seen Fight Club, right? You've seen the movie Fight Club?
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember the part where not Tyler Durden, but the narrator? So, what's his name? God, what's the actor's name? Who I love, and I'm forgetting his name. Edward Norton. Just beats the living hell out of that blonde-haired kid. And he's like, I just wanted to destroy something beautiful. Like, that's what the Chiefs are going to do to Carolina. They're just like, They're like, we're pissed about losing, and we've got the perfect matchup to just stomp on a freaking throat.
Oh man,
You know?
this man's been blue balling me on my bench the whole fucking season. Like it's gonna be hard. I feel where you're coming from, and it is the logical conclusion, but it's gonna be hard, man. It's gonna be hard to resist, especially because, as I've said, it's not like I have only studs in my lineup. Like as I stated, I'm starting a part-time player at running back. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We have an interesting matchup here. We have a very interesting matchup, and I hope you lose.
I hope you lose.
Yeah. Yep.
Should we should we like tape some Monday night reactions?
Live stream. Fuck shit. I just hope that Justin Herbert throws some touchdowns, because I know Lamar is going to get points. Of course, it's Lamar Jackson. But like, I just need Herbert to do enough.
I think Lamar sneakily has the tougher matchup. I mean, everybody's been tossing touchdowns.
Yeah, but it's Lamar Jackson. His matchup doesn't matter too much for him. It's not like that big a deal for the matchup to be red for him. Like he'll still get points. It's Lamar.
You want to put a bet on it, or do you want to wait till to see if we make the playoffs, or if we face each other in the playoffs?
Yeah, let's just do that. Let's wait for the playoffs.
All right. I know that's a very kook thing to say. Oh, we already know we're getting in.
I hope so. I think I will. I have 7 wins. It'd be tough for me not to make it, even if I lost out. My points are high enough, and
there's like
too much cannibalizing happening at the bottom. It should be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that we're both pretty safe for getting in, but we're not both. This is a battle for a potential bye week, so it's huge.
Yeah,
we'll be talking some shit.
Shifting gears here just for a few minutes. I actually wanted to talk about this a little bit with Alex as well, but that's okay. We can get that perspective from him another time. We are this is the inaugural year of a dynasty league, 12-team dynasty league. We find ourselves for this season, opposite ends of the spectrum. I am not the top team in the league, but I have scored the most points in the league.
You're in really good shape for a playoff push, and you made some very shrewd moves.
So going forward is the interesting thing I want to talk about, because for me, my team, it's funny. My team is pretty damn good, but I don't have a lot of depth. Your team is nothing but depth. So besides Bijan Robinson. So it's how do you plan to navigate your more than likely going to be 0-12 after this week?
Yeah, we should give some context to people, because maybe I'm sure we've referenced it, but I have literally lost every week, which if any of you have played fantasy football to any level, you have to understand how impressive this tank job has been. How many times have you lost to a team that didn't set a full lineup? How many times have you lost to a random player blowing up for no fucking reason? Now, I know Dynasty is different. I drafted a team kind of purposefully with the future in mind, but nobody expects the team to just completely fucking collapse and crater, right?
Not like that.
And look, I'm not a cheater. I'm not out here dumping players or not setting legal lineups, but okay, anybody that's like paying attention, I'm not going to try to pretend that I've been making like a very active effort to improve my roster
Yeah.
for this season or like position myself well. I think that if you see that, my pickups last week, I think that kind of gives a little bit of a hint of what I'm trying to do. But yeah, I mean, like, yeah, it's just been an effort of like, if my team is going to be bad, which I realized very, very quickly this season, my team was going to be real bad. Once Rashi went down, that was like just the instant like decision of like, oh yeah, I'm going full tank this year. And so I'm perfectly fine with that. But yeah, you're right. Like, in terms of who is a true stud on my team, it's just Bijan for the most part. And how do I plan to navigate it? Well, I do have a plan. It starts with securing the number 1 overall pick. We have another manager in our league that, annoyingly, I just cannot fully separate myself in the race to the bottom from. Somehow he finds himself in the hunt for the playoffs.
We have 7 out of 12 teams are 5 and 6.
Yeah,
that's insane.
Yeah, and but a lot of that's helped by me, right?
Yeah, you've been handing them out like fucking like butterscotch candy at an 80-year-old's house.
Right. Nobody even wants them, and then they still get them. Yeah, but he's been nipping at my heels in those max points. So I think that I'm going to be able to secure the number 1 pick, and I'm prepared to put together some very, very nasty lineups in order to do it. And so, yeah, I mean, like, I think that the first and foremost thing is, okay, cool, you have the number 1 pick. Well, jerk yourself off, pal, for all that's worth. It's not about having the number 1 pick. It's about nailing the number 1 pick. Got to pick the right player.
Yeah.
I like Janty a lot. Where he goes and, what it really looks like when I get into draft season and start looking at dudes, that's going to inform my decision quite a bit. From that standpoint, because that's an obvious hole on the team, right? Bijan is the only core or running back on my team that's worth a fuck. Travis Etienne
he's a cornerstone.
Honestly, borderline droppable at this point. But like, once again, there's just no point if my team's going to be bad anyway. Like, I am just holding just to see what happens next season, right? Like,
it doesn't cost you anything to hold them. It doesn't cost you anything to hold them.
It can't get any worse, right? And then, from there, the way that I've always figured it is I have young receivers that have some implied upside. I think Rashee Rice can be a legitimate borderline wide receiver 1 play going forward.
He'll be good. Yeah.
And then, in between the Pretty Rickies, the Tanks, even though we talked about that being a little suspect, Whiskey Dick, like, between those guys, I need one of those players to turn into another actual piece for my team, which I feel like they probably will.
One of those guys hopefully turns into a cornerstone piece for you. And just to clarify, because you used all the nicknames, Pretty Ricky's Ricky Pearsall. You said Tank. That could be Bigsby or Dell. You mean Dell.
Right.
Whiskey Dick is Jameson Williams.
Good call. Great, terrible podcasting over here. Great catch. So of course, like, Sam Laporta, who, whatever, hasn't been great, but he's a fucking tight end.
He's young.
Points, he's fine. What it's going to have to be for me, and where I think that my rebuild for my team is, it's going to be completely dependent on the first 5 weeks of next season. That's what I'm looking at. Once again, I'll go into next season. It's going to be Bijan. It's going to be insert stud rookie here. And, everybody else that I have on my team, if I sneak into, a 3-2 record or whatever, then I'm going to, then I might use some of these assets to go get some aging.
And
veterans,
Rashi will
right?
be back in your lineup too, which is big.
Yeah, like so like, but that's the way that I see myself rebuilding the team is I'm looking around the league and I'm seeing a lot of rosters that don't have any youth, right? They don't have much like future
Alex
upside,
being one of them.
right? Or depth, quote unquote, from what you would say. So if I really feel like I'm kind of close and like a Chris Godwin coming back from injury might help me or what have you, I might go and get that. But what I think is probably the more likely outcome is I bolster my team with a couple good rookies again this season, end up fairly middling, race to the bottom once again. And I think that if I spend at least one more season waiting out the rest of the league, I mean, this isn't hate, I don't think, but there was like 3 or 4 teams in our league that really burned the ships. I think that even if my team isn't great, I think that there's 4 or 5 teams that I just have to wait for them to fall apart and then buy up their parts. That's my plan.
So you've spent lots of sleepless nights thinking about this, I can see, because it's a very detailed plan.
It
which
is
good.
And, well, it's actually not sleepless nights at all. I've been sleeping great. Well, in that regard, just not for anything else. Work's been kicking my ass, but you know the amount of time that I normally spend tinkering over. Oh, how do I win this week? How do I set the best lineup? I don't worry about that at all. I'm thinking about the future.
Yeah. Yeah, you're in full. I mean, you are truly in tank mode. There's nothing you can do at 0-11. Soon, more than likely to be 0-12 after this week with all the bye weeks.
I fully expect it.
Yeah.
Have you seen? I know that maybe this is your first year doing Dynasty as well, but like, have you heard of something so pure and so shameless as what I've done?
Only in politics, but. So, switching to my team, I think.
Yeah, I know we spent a lot of time talking about my shitburger squad.
I think I have a handful of cornerstone pieces on my team. Obviously, Jamar Chase is one of those pieces. Drake London, one of those pieces. Lamar Jackson. I also have Isaiah Pacheco.
I think your team's great.
Huh?
No, I said I think your team is set up great. Like you did a really good job. In fact, I commend you for that because other people didn't do this. I think you did a good job of mixing in some youth and some age.
Some production now.
Yeah, you don't only have this season. Like you should be fine going forward as well.
Yeah, I think my team is pretty good. I think my depth is lacking as it is right now, but I will say that some of my depth is youthful players who could turn into something more. I don't see any potential superstars anywhere. The only one that I'm kind of somewhat hoping can turn into a superstar or at least a very viable player.
Are you a cokehead?
No, not even him. On my taxi squad, Ben Sinnott. I'm hoping that Ben Sinnott can turn into a very useful tight end. I mean, he was a second-round pick. He's buried in the depth chart right now, but Jaden Daniels, he came in drafted the same, it was Jaden Daniels and the next round Ben Sinnott for Washington. Jaden Daniels obviously seems like he's going to work. I mean, he is going to work out. He already is working out. If Ben Sinnott can ever usurp 92-year-old Zach Ertz, I don't see that happening this season, but maybe next season, if he's like the tight end one, that gives me some hope.
Yeah, that's a big deal because obviously George Kittle is the GOAT right now, but he's not going to be around forever.
Yeah, I have George Kittle, who's 31 years old, I believe, right? 31. Yeah, he's
Mhm.
31. So, yes, he's not going to be around forever. And then my future hopeful depth is AD Mitchell. I hope that AD Mitchell can work out. I have guys like Kareem
You
Hunt.
didn't come around on him. You didn't like him very much at first.
No, I'm not sold on him being a very good player, but if a guy is 22 and he's a rookie, I can't pretend like I know for a fact somebody's going to be good or not. I mean, I hope he's good. He has what, second round draft capital, I believe, from the Colts. Um, he's just a hold and wait and see, or package him for something else, and that will work itself out. Deontay, he's just kind of depth. Maybe he starts getting worked in the offense at some point. I don't know. I can't start him right now. And Theo Johnson is another hopeful tight end that I have who's young and has shown some promise.
Yeah, that's another. And I mean, I hate to bring that back to my team, but you mentioned tight ends. Like, if I can walk away from this draft with one more stud, but also a hopeful tight end. One of these rookies that has some upside within the next couple seasons. That'll feel pretty good. I'll feel like I'm in pretty good shape.
I think that Sam Laporta's best season of his career will be his rookie year, and his sophomore year will be his worst year. I think that he will eventually settle somewhere in the middle of that. So you should be fine at tight end for the foreseeable future. I mean, he's what, 23, 24?
Yeah,
I don't know how old he is.
If the worst case scenario is that I have slightly upgraded Dallas Goedert, that's fine. But I want to try to swing for the fences going forward.
Well, yeah, of course you give it a shot in future years. So feel free to criticize me in any way you want. I'm going to criticize you a little bit here.
I mean, an 0 for team is very highly worth criticism, which I did. I ate my crow earlier in an earlier
it's
episode.
It's not so much about the record. You are in a weird spot with your dynasty team where you have a lot of promising youthful players that you want to hold. I just kind of wish you got a little bit more active and found another first round pick or something like that to be able to take another shot at a high end prospect. That's what I would have liked to see you do. You kind of just sat on your hands for trading, but I kind of understood it because I'm like, all right, because I don't even know how many times I looked at your team looking for a potential trade. I mean, I've sent 3-4 offers for Jameson Williams. And I kind of understood. I was like, well, he doesn't have much to trade away besides if he's going to trade. He's not going to trade away a cornerstone piece like Bijan. And at the same time, he doesn't really want to trade away these high upside youthful players like an Addison, if that's how you feel about him, like a Ricky Pearsall, like a Rashee Rice, like a Jameson. Did I say Jameson Williams already? These youthful players with a lot of upside. It was like he doesn't really want to trade them. So it's like I understood, but I think if our teams were flipped, I would have been a little bit more active. Like, listen, I'll give you Jordan Addison. I'll give you give me your first. I think I would have been a little bit more on that route. But at the same time, rookies are not a guarantee. Even the 101 is not a guarantee. So
yeah,
I understood it.
I think that's completely fair. I mean, I'll say this. By the time I kind of made that decision to stand pat, first of all, this is, again, I'm just kind of scrolling back and looking at some previous trades. My idea of what a first round pick is worth is very different than what clearly some other people's idea of what a first round pick is worth. And I didn't know that, going into the situation because, like sometimes I think about, well, if I were trading Paul for a first round pick, like what would that look like? And what would you need to give up? The thing is that, yeah, I mean, I'm in a shitty spot, right? Like, if I had any veteran players on my team at all, yeah, I would have traded them all away for picks. But the players that I do have, the problem is like any player that would have garnered me in my mind a first round pick. I saw at least one trade go through in our league that I thought a first round pick went for a stinky block of cheese, in my humble opinion.
Do you know the one specifically?
There was just like, I don't know, like flipping a mid first for Nuke Hopkins. I thought was a weird move.
Right, the 2020. It was like a 2027, but it's,
yeah, okay,
it's still a
it was
first.
but yeah, and so like if I had thought like something like that would have garnered me a first, but the reality is the spot that I'm in, or that I decided for myself, was any player that would get me a first round pick is a player that I want anyway. You know what I mean? Like the players that like I wanted to get rid of weren't really gonna get me very much, in my opinion. Like, like Travis Etienne, I'll sell him for a fucking, whatever, but the value that I would get for him is really not worthwhile to me. So I'm in a situation of my own creation that basically at this point, my draft picks over the next 2 seasons are going to be higher value than any draft pick I would get. That's just the reality of the scenario. So, we'll see. I may get aggressive in the draft. You might see some movement within the draft.
I think that'll be fun as hell.
But yeah, right now, like I said, I'm waiting for one extra guy to break out, and I have to hit on these picks. I have no choice. I have no margin for error on that. But yeah, that's actually completely accurate, and I've had the same thought and cried about it. But let me see. Your team. I don't know that I have criticism per se. Just any team where you have Jamar Chase in a dynasty league and Lamar Jackson, like, you're in pretty good shape. Drake London's going to be a guy moving forward, even if he's not like Drake London's somehow the wide receiver 5 in fantasy. Okay. I don't see him as like a top 5 wide receiver play every season moving forward, but he's a great fantasy asset. So like,
he's a cornerstone piece. He's not the best cornerstone piece, but he's a cornerstone for sure.
Yeah, and in positivity, I tried to go against the grain in terms of a dynasty startup strategy, and it blew up in my face. You drafted good young wide receivers, and surprise, surprise, it worked out very well for you. Let's see. Yeah, again, no real criticism from a process standpoint. Just some players that I just don't, I don't necessarily care for. Like,
I'll criticize myself a little bit here.
Like the Deontay Johnsons of the world and whatever. Yeah. But like, those are guys that aren't going to be a part of your future plan anyway. So I don't really have much to say.
Yeah, the Deontay trade to the Ravens has really hurt his value, obviously. He was okay when he was on Carolina, when he was getting force-fed. But I will say I'll criticize myself a little bit and I'm not going to kill myself for it, and I'll explain it. I gave up too much for James Conner. A second and a third this year and a first the next year. My reasoning is really two things. One, I can probably get a first back from somebody next year. Number two, I'm going for the win, and I'm going to need Pacheco and Conner to score me some points, because Tyrone Tracy, we'll see how that goes rest of the season. Guys like Rico Dowdle, we're not getting it done. I had Alex Madison and Gus Edwards, not going to get it done. Like, Kareem Hunt has been fine, but I have Pacheco, so I'm waiting for him to come back, like I said. I needed a running back of actual consequence to stick in there every week alongside, hopefully, a healthy Pacheco when the playoffs come around, to give my team some actual like punch at the running back position. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give up more than I really should, because I'm trying to win this season. And that's it. I was in talks with Joe Mixon for Joe Mixon. He didn't want to give him up. So I basically was like, dude, pretty much the same offer. Just give me like a shitty pick back for optics reasons, and I'll take James Conner instead. And he's like, all right, let's do it for James Conner. So,
well, first of all, James Conner's a machine, number one. And two, like at a certain point, like that's the really cool thing for me about Dynasty, is that like right now picks is everything to me, but within 2 seasons, I hope to be in a scenario where I'm saying fuck them picks.
Right. Yeah.
That's kind of.
But I still have 2 firsts this season. They're going to be lower picks unless either me or the first pick, the guy who I have his first pick, goes out of the playoffs early. It'll be a mid pick instead of a late pick, but I'm hoping I have at least one late pick, and that's me winning the championship. But we'll see how it goes.
These next few weeks, I've been morbidly curious about who actually sneaks in. Again, hilariously, Chris is in a scenario where he can sneak his way in.
Yeah, it's just crazy. There are 7 teams that are 5 and 6, and it's going to come down to points for that last spot. There's gonna be a points for tiebreaker for sure. I think Alex will get in.
Six of those 5 and 6 teams all play each other, and one of them, Gregor, gets an absolute,
plays you.
Bonus. Yeah, he gets a bonus win this week.
Yeah. And honestly, last thing I'll say is kind of analyzing teams. The guy Josh, who went full like nuclear warfare, every top level aging player he took.
Scorched earth.
Yeah, fully. He just was like, I'm just gonna destroy, and he has. He's 9-2. Coasted most of the year. I beat him out of miracle, and then he finally had a truly dud week this past week. And then you've got a team like Jeremy, who I would say Jeremy probably has one of the best teams in the league, because his team is good now, and he's got a lot of good youthful players on his team. So,
yeah, getting Leak and Puka in a dynasty league is nice, for sure.
I think he's got Jaden Reed, Jordan Love. He's got some young running backs that are looking to eventually make their mark. Like, Jeremy's team is freaking ready to go. It's locked and loaded for multiple seasons.
Needle very nicely. Yeah, he did.
He did a good, yes. He had a very good draft. He had a very good draft for sure.
Yeah, and this is man. All I'm saying is, you better win this season, Joshua Poo. You better. I'm not gonna hate, but you better win.
Yeah. He sold out for it, so.
Because that's the only way it's worth it.
All right, y'all. We're gonna get out of here. We're just shooting the shit now for some time.
Well,
but
if you are still with us, first of all, get a life.
Yeah.
And secondly, thank you for the listen. Truly appreciate it. We're just doing this for the love of the game at this point. But if you appreciated the exploration of our minds, throw us those likes and subscribes.
Thank you. Peace out, y'all.